It was a lot of good work, a lot of progress, amazing stuff. I had a research group, I had a product group in Microsoft SQL Server, their database group. So why move and do a startup, right? Why leave a position that's so great? That was a question my late father actually asked and said I was nuts to leave and go do a startup, right when I'm sitting there in a place where my stock options are making money and all the good stuff. Here's what moved me, right? Companies built up a lot of stores, data stores. Data mining was supposed to help them solve it. But nobody was getting value out of their data. The truth is, the data was a mess, right? Nobody knew how to build these data stores in a way that they could be useful to the business. So in reality, actually, this culminated in the following slide that I used at the National Research Council, trying to describe the problem, is I said the state of data warehouses back then, still is till today, right, is we have very primitive ways of exploring and navigating these data sets, but we know how to build these massive stores, right? We can build these huge databases, but the data goes into those data stores just to rest in peace, right? So it's like a data tomb. So the analogy is it's like ancient Egypt, where we know how to build these huge structures. They're amazing, impressive feats, and CEOs would run around saying, my data warehouse is bigger than your data warehouse, but nobody was getting the value out of them, right? And that's what got us to sort of leave, do a startup, which started out saying, if companies can't do this data warehousing and data management, why don't we do it, today you would say in the cloud. Back then the term was ASP, Application Service Provider. Same thing, mostly same thing. And we started this company that grew very fast. Digimind today is called Audience Science, and today it's specialized in behavioral targeting on the web, which I'll talk to you about in a second. Raised a lot of money very quickly. The team grew very quickly. We went from 3 of us to 120 employees in a year. It was like amazing, right? Here's a list of our customers after a year and a half in business, right? All great names, all companies that are just amazing to work with. American Express also became an investor in the company. So great stuff, great story, great growth. However, something was missing, right? What we were beginning to understand was that it wasn't enough to do all this. We needed to evolve it to a point where it became really solutions. Like we would deliver a solution to someone, which meant we started building these solution teams, which means professional services or consulting. And this is where I wanted to share with you the views, right? So here was my view of the world as a researcher, right? This is my first transformation. The world is about theory and algorithms, right? And then in the background, there's something called the database, and there's something called systems, right? Then when I became a practitioner, suddenly something called the customer started showing up, because you gotta deliver this somewhere. And systems and integration became pretty big, and the database became even bigger, but the algorithms became small, right? And the real view in business is there's something called dollars, right? And if you notice, I didn't draw it to scale. If I drew it to scale, algorithms would be not visible, okay? So basically, the world thinks about what you have in a completely different ways. It's all about solutions to customers because that's generates dollars, and to get that, I need systems, right? And that was a major transformation. That's what caused us to basically spin off a company called DMX Group that basically addressed these questions, and basically it was addressing this gap. The business on the left is like people want to get customer acquisition, they want to convert customers, they want to increase the average order size, they want to retain them, they want them to be loyal. On the right, there's these technical tools, right? Neural network segmentation, data mining, big data, right? And in the middle, you need specialists. That didn't exist. You needed to assemble these big teams of statisticians, data mining PhDs, database administrators, consultants, data scientists, and big data, right? That was a gap. So that created the opportunity for the next company. That's DMX Group. I'm not going to spend any time on this one, other than tell you it didn't last long, because Yahoo needed us so much that they ended up buying us. And I'm going to skip this. This is just to tell you that the applications in business are many. And on the right are sort of how the businesses use it, but it's okay, we're skipping it. But what we learned from there is that people are struggling with something even higher level, which is, what data should I even collect, right? how do I prioritize my investments? Why should I invest in data, right? And what do I need with it? So what's new is that a lot of these businesses are interacting with customers online. So that means suddenly they're generating so much more data, yet they're not set up to deal with that data, right? So the bottom line is that businesses found themselves in a zone where they cannot even handle what's happening around them. So that's came up with the term big data that you might hear a lot about in your future careers. And there's a new term, data scientist, associated with it, which I like a lot. But big data is a mix of structured, semi-structured, and unstructured data. So you have the regular database, you have your spreadsheets, you have text data, tons of text data, stuff that you guys put up on Facebook and comments on Pinterest and all sorts of stuff. And it typically breaks the barrier of the traditional way of handling data. That's all I'm going to say about it here. And it leads to a very messy situation where you need these scientists to go on expeditions every time you need something out of the data. And that, that's why I like those terms.